The film opens with Bob Lee Swagger, an elite sniper, and his partner Donnie. They are positioned on a hillside watching American troops retreat from a combat zone while enemy forces close in. From long range, Bob takes out 2 enemies trying to cut off the convoy. The mission should be over. They prepare to leave.
Sector wind, 3/4 value, push 2, wide spot on. Command, Mike.
Then Donnie receives a new order over the radio. They are told to stay and cover the retreating troops. Bob holds the line. His shots are so precise the enemy can't even locate his position. But the situation turns. Their location is compromised and comes under artillery fire. Donnie calls for backup. None arrives. Enemy helicopters move in. Their position is destroyed.
Down! Just here.
Donnie is shot. Bob escapes, grabs a heavier rifle, and shoots down the helicopter chasing him. Three years later, Bob survives. Donnie does not. Feeling betrayed, Bob leaves the military and disappears into the mountains, living in isolation with his dog. In Virginia, a group of high-ranking officials led by Colonel Isaac review Bob's file. They know exactly who he is. Bob Lee Swagger is the best sniper America ever had. Before escaping 3 years ago, he incapacitated nearly 70% of enemy forces. Colonel Isaac goes to see Bob, but is immediately thrown off the property. Bob's bitterness toward the government runs deep. Still, Isaac's calm approach convinces Bob to listen. He reveals classified intelligence. The president will be assassinated in 2 weeks, likely from over 2 kilometers away. Bob is asked to plan possible sniper attacks in 3 cities on the president's upcoming tour. The goal is to predict the shooter's position. Bob refuses at first. He says his past is behind him. But as Isaac leaves, Bob takes interest in his vehicle. He asks to photograph the engine, but secretly captures the license plate. Bob still loves his country, and he fears the threat is real. He tests a shot from 2 kilometers away. At that distance, wind, gravity, and terrain can change everything. Only a rare sniper can pull it off. Bob is one of them. He agrees to help. After analyzing all 3 cities, Bob reaches one conclusion: Philadelphia, from the top of a building, at a firing distance of roughly 1.6 kilometers. His report is precise and detailed, impressing Colonel Isaac and his team. They plan to capture the assassin alive. And the next day, Bob is asked to join the operation. Finally, the long-awaited day arrived. FBI agents secured the entire area, while several elite snipers took position on top of nearby buildings. From an old building across the street, Bob Swagger and the colonel observed everything from afar. Not long after, local police entered the room, and the colonel formally introduced Bob as the expert who would help identify the shooter. As the moment of the president's speech approached, Bob carefully calculated wind direction and shooting angles. He immediately realized something was wrong and warned the colonel to redirect his team and capture the real perpetrator. But before anything could be done,
Take him now. Send in the ERT team, take out the steam.
Bob was suddenly hit by 2 gunshots and thrown from a height. Severely wounded, he barely survived and forced himself to escape. The crime scene was cleared and staged to make it look like Bob was the assassin. Even the weapons stored in Bob's home were planted as evidence to frame him completely. While fleeing, Bob encountered a young FBI agent named Nick. With no other choice, Bob stabbed him and stole his vehicle. Instantly, all military units and FBI agents were deployed to hunt him down. His condition worsened by the minute. Losing too much blood, he stopped at a car wash and remembered that FBI vehicles carried a prototype first aid kit. Using what he found, Bob managed to slow the bleeding and continued his escape. Trapped both on land and from the air, Bob narrowly escaped again by clinging to a tugboat. Once ashore, he stole an old car and disappeared. Despite massive manhunts and nationwide news coverage, Bob Swagger vanished without a trace. Back at the bureau, Nick was blamed for the incident and considered an embarrassment to the FBI. Still, he insisted Bob was innocent and that the shooting was a setup, but no one believed him. Meanwhile, Bob's wound worsened. To avoid recognition, he sabotaged the power at a local shop and bought water, salt, needles, and sugar. Using only these simple supplies, he created a makeshift IV infusion to replace the blood he had lost, proof of his extraordinary survival skills. After changing his appearance, Bob finally reached Kentucky. There, he met Sarah, the widow of his late spotter, Donnie. At first, she drove him away, but soon she believed his story and agreed to help. After talking about his past guilt involving Donnie, Sarah begins preparing the surgical equipment. Together, they gathered basic surgical tools so Bob could remove the bullet lodged in his body. At the same time, Nick stayed overnight at the office, re-examining bullets, footage, and Bob's background. One detail stood out. Bob's swagger had been deliberately framed. And the truth finally surfaced. The real target of the shooting wasn't the President of the United States, but a religious leader from Africa standing right beside him.
5 shots at 1,000 yards.
Things became even more suspicious when Timon, the police officer who shot Bob during the chaos, was found dead in an alley that same night, supposedly killed during a robbery. This only strengthened Nick's belief that everything was part of a larger conspiracy. Nick continued his investigation by visiting the location he suspected to be the original sniper's nest. There, he discovered 3 holes on the ground arranged like a tripod. When he consulted a gun expert friend, the pattern perfectly matched a professional sniper setup. But from that moment on, Nick realized his movements were being watched. Unknown agents began subtly pressuring him. He had clearly gone too far. After a week of recovery, Bob's physical wounds finally healed. But emotionally, he was shattered when he learned that during the police raid on his home, his beloved dog had been shot and killed. Filled with rage, Bob swore to hunt down Colonel Isaac and everyone involved.
Must be the grieving widow.
Oh, without knocking, wonder.
That night, Bob asked Sarah for help, though he felt guilty for dragging his late friend's wife into this dangerous situation. Sarah, however, convinced him she was willing, because Bob was the only true friend her husband ever had. The next day, Bob used Nick's curiosity against him. While Nick was relaxing at a diner, Sarah approached and quietly revealed that she had met Bob. She told Nick the truth about the incident and handed him a photo of Colonel Isaac's vehicle license plate, taken by Bob days earlier. That meeting pushed Nick even further. He used FBI resources to trace the vehicle number. But that move immediately raised red flags. Colonel Isaac suspected Nick was working with Bob. One afternoon, Nick was suddenly abducted by several agents. He was brutally tortured, and they even prepared the scene to make it look like he had committed suicide. What they didn't expect was Bob. Bob's plan worked perfectly. He rescued Nick before it was too late. Bob initially planned to dump his enemies' bodies into the river, but Nick hesitated. He still wasn't fully ready to cross that line. Nick suggested hiring a lawyer and exposing the truth legally, but Bob shut that idea down immediately. He told Nick these men were not ordinary criminals. They were law-abiding on the surface. Even if punished, they would simply disappear and return under new identities. That was the moment Nick finally understood the scale of the conspiracy and agreed to work with Bob. Elsewhere, Colonel Isaac was informed that Nick's execution had failed. The 3 agents sent to kill him were all taken out by a sniper. At that moment, Isaac realized one terrifying truth. Bob's swagger was still alive. Meanwhile, Bob and Nick drove to Tennessee to meet a firearms expert. Bob asked the technicians to analyze the recent shooting incident. This was crucial to prove he was innocent. He also asked who else could make a 2-kilometer shot. The answer was clear. Only Bob Lee's swagger had that skill. The rest were dead. Except for one. There was another sniper with the same ability, but he had stopped shooting after failing his last mission. At that moment, Bob realized the truth. He had met this man before. His name was Zerbiak, one of Colonel Isaac's own operatives. Without wasting time, Nick asked a contact to track Zerbiak's identity and location. The report came back that very night. But unknown to them, Colonel Isaac had already anticipated Bob's move. To secure the operation, he deployed a full tactical team and even sought approval from a senior figure, a U.S. senator from Montana who was also part of the conspiracy. Not long after, one of Colonel Isaac's men reported that there was someone who once helped Bob recover. his ex-wife, Sarah. Without hesitation, the colonel ordered his team to capture her and brutally tortured by the colonel's men. Bob and Nick moved fast. They analyzed the location and decided to stay near Zerbiak's house. Bob knew this was a trap, but that's exactly why they proceeded. They prepared carefully, buying basic tools from a hardware store and assembling multiple remote-controlled explosives. Nick was trained to handle long-range weapons to prepare for the worst. When the operation began, Nick monitored the guards from a distance and relayed information via radio. Bob moved in, eliminating the guards one by one, planting explosives along his route. The plan worked. Bob cornered Zerbiak using his own weapon. But Zerbiak was ready. The two finally talked about the real reason Bob had been framed. The assassination target was never the president. It was the African religious leader standing beside him. That man was about to expose Colonel Isaac and his unit for massacring an entire village. Over 400 civilians, killed without warning to protect an American-owned oil pipeline. Colonel Isaac was only a pawn. The true mastermind was the senator. Nick then warned Bob. Dozens of military units were closing in.
Who runs Johnson?
Senator Trace, the betrayed him.
After revealing everything, Zerbiak chose to end it all. Bob ordered Nick to move to position B and execute their backup plan.
The gas.
The explosives detonated exactly as calculated, taking down multiple troops while Nick provided sniper cover from afar. However, the situation escalates when enemy troops deploy helicopters to hunt them down. Luckily, Bob finds a nearby fuel tank and uses it as a weapon, bringing the helicopter down and allowing them to escape. The aftermath enrages the FBI. At the scene, they find evidence of a helicopter landing near an abandoned property, but no suspects are found. Soon after, Nick contacts his superiors and claims he has captured Bob, but refuses to hand him over. He admits he no longer knows who can be trusted. Colonel Isaac, realizing his men were defeated so easily, decides to threaten Bob using a sniper. But Bob is prepared. He secretly recorded everything, including proof of who orchestrated the attack.
Six-term Senator Charles Meacham from Montana.
He even knows the exact location where 400 civilians were buried in Africa for the oil pipeline operation. They agree to meet. Under one condition, Bob must approach openly, visible from a distance. The meeting takes place the next day in a snow-covered mountain area. The colonel arrives by helicopter, along with Sarah and the senator. As promised, Bob walks toward the meeting point. But the colonel betrays him again, placing 3 snipers around the area. What he doesn't know is that Bob anticipated everything. Nick, who had been buried underground, survives thanks to a bulletproof vest. The man holding Sarah hostage is taken down. Once the area is cleared, he steps out of hiding.
Search.
I'm licensed to carry.
Put your weapon down!
After enduring torture and sexual abuse while in captivity, Sarah finally picks up a pistol and shoots the criminal herself. Impressed by Bob's skills, the senator offers him a job. Bob refuses, asking what kind of man would work for a murderer. The senator demands the confession recording. Instead, Bob burns it,
What are you doing?
saying the law itself is corrupted and cannot be trusted. Unbeknownst to them, Nick had already sent an anonymous letter revealing the meeting's location and time. Soon after, the FBI arrives. Bob is arrested, unable to prove his innocence. Later, Bob is interrogated in a special room attended by the senator, FBI leaders, the colonel, Nick, and Sarah. Bob calmly presents the evidence, explaining that the bullet used was taken from his previous training session. Nick silently confirms this by handing Bob a bullet. When Bob pulls the trigger, nothing happens. All his weapons were modified to never fire, a safeguard only he knew. Despite everything, the real mastermind cannot be legally exposed. Bob is declared not guilty and released, but the senator and his allies walk free.
Bubbly Swagger, you're free to go.
Moments later, the senator is seen relaxing in his luxurious villa deep in the forest. But the calm doesn't last long. Bob arrives without warning. He asks them to turn off the lights. If the justice system failed to make them pay for their sins, then Bob's rifle would serve as the judge. One by one, they are executed. Bob forces the senator to shoot the colonel himself. After that, Bob sabotages the gas line inside the house.